Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Schmidt. I'm a wealth advisor with Beacon Bridge Wealth Partners. We appreciate you taking time out of your day here. Today, we're joined by Drew Tirney from 401k in a Box. Drew, thanks for being here with us today.
Sure thing, Jim. Thanks for having me today.
We're going to focus today real quick on kind of the 5 things you should be focusing on when it comes to your 401k. Couple things that you probably may know some things about, but Drew's going to share some insights, some stories maybe around some things that he's seen in his experience that you may not think about, right? So, Drew, why don't we kick it off real quick? Why don't you just give us a quick intro on who you are, who you work for, and some of your past experience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I've been in the retirement plan industry for 19 years now. I started as a representative on the phone where for some Fortune 500 companies that used to call into our call center, and I used to help the individuals, navigate the website or take a loan or stuff like that, right? Since then, I've kind of morphed into sales rep for a little bit. And now I represent 401k in a Box, which is a third-party administrator. So the best way to think about what our firm does is we act like a CPA for a retirement plan. So most individual employees don't really know who we are. We're kind of behind the scenes doing the plan documents and the compliance work. But we have a really deep bench and a really high skill level when it comes to dealing with the 401k. So just wanted to bring, my kind of wealth of experience in the industry to the conversation today.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's jump right into it, right? First kind of question I have for you is around contributions into a 401k, right? People start a job at a company that offers a 401k. They know that they should contribute. They know that it's likely best for them to contribute as much as they possibly can, right? But what are some other things that people should be thinking about around contributions?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to start with the one thing I learned from my finance professor before I walked out the door to graduation in 2001. The last piece of advice he gave to us, and maybe the only thing I remember from that class, is contribute to your 401k as much as possible, as soon as possible, right? Make it a little bit uncomfortable for yourself. But if you do that right out of the gate, you create a habit, right, of contributions. And that's kind of what the industry is moving towards now. You might have heard of something called auto enrollment, and some of you all may be auto enrolled in your plan out there, but companies now have the right to automatically put you into the plan at a certain percentage of your salary, right? 3%, 4%, 5%. And then every year they bump that up another 1% to help us kind of grow our tax savings, right? Our tax sheltered savings as a country, really, right? Because you all know, like Social Security, like, is that going to be there in 20 years, 25 years? I'm not so sure, but we got to have something to fall back on. And that's where these 401ks come in. And, most financial experts, they're suggesting that you need to be saving at least 10%. And that doesn't account for any company type contribution. That's just you as a saver, right? And then I think, the other thing that we think about when we think about contributions to a 401k is not only am I contributing, but it's what type of money am I contributing? Am I doing pre-tax money where once I retire and take it out, I have to pay taxes on it when I take it out? Or do I want to pay the taxes now through like a Roth contribution? And then when I go to take the money out down the road, it comes out tax-free. And you can do one or the other or a combination of both as you participate in your own 401k. And that's, Jim, I know you and your team are really effective at having those types of conversations with the employees as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Drew. That last point you made, well, all the points you made there, but really that point you made around the Roth conversation, right? A lot of clients don't realize that at certain income levels, you are no longer able to contribute to a Roth IRA, right? So it's not something that people would necessarily be able to do on their own. But having a Roth feature in a 401k allows them access to to the Roth side of the you know
Yeah, the
the
Roth
tax front.
contribution, right? So
Right.
I think you're right. I think that with the Roth, not only are you constrained on the IRA side by your income, right? If you make too much money, you can't do it. But in the 401k, that doesn't exist. Additionally, the contribution levels are like 3 times the amount of an IRA. So not only like in the IRA, you're cut off at 6,500 or $7,000, whatever it is now. On the 401k side, regardless of your income, we're talking $22,500 for 2023. If you're over the age of 50, you're talking about $30,000 of Roth contributions that are possible if you want, right? So there's certainly an advantage within the 401k to be talking about Roth and certainly considering it for yourself if it fits in your financial picture.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we talk. I always ask the question to clients when they're asking how should they allocate 401k dollars. And I'm curious to get your opinion on. I feel like the Roth feature inside of 401ks is becoming more popular. Is it something you're seeing now more times than not?
I see it definitely more often, since its inception, 20 plus years ago. I mean, I think, in my opinion, I, for myself, I like to build different buckets of money for myself for retirement, right? So I will have a pre-tax portion, which maybe the company is contributing to my 401k, but I like to build a Roth portion of it as well, so that I have the choice when I retire on what I'm going to withdraw, what I might be passing on to beneficiaries. And it gives me control based on, where the taxes are when we retire, right? I mean, taxes aren't going to go down, right? So it's very likely the tax bracket that you're going to be in, the tax brackets will be higher when you retire, but how much money are you going to be earning in retirement, right? Are you going to be at a
Yeah,
really substantially low tax bracket where maybe the maybe the pre-tax contributions don't matter to pay taxes on, or do you want to avoid all those taxes and get the Roth in there now? But I think there's a balance for everybody, and that's kind of what I believe in.
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, and it obviously varies client to client, but there's a good case to be made to certainly have some Roth dollars mixed in there if you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, next topic, you touched on it just briefly before, around company contributions, right? Obviously, one of the big draws of a 401k is obviously you're able to contribute money for yourself, but you're also able to benefit from a company match, right? What are some of the things in your experience that participants should understand around a company match?
Yeah, no, that's another good point here, and I think that one of the things that I think about is I was at an enrollment meeting once when an advisor was standing up in front of the employee base and talking about the company match, but he did it in a way, we're all, you and I, Jim, are kind of close to Atlantic City, and now we have Parks Casino and all this other stuff. But he said to the employees, he said, if I told you, if you were to hand me a $20 bill right now, I would just turn around and give you $40 back. Would you do it? And everybody's like, yeah, absolutely, I'd
Of
do it.
course.
And that's how he related it to the company match. He basically said, you should be taking full advantage of your company match. If you put in that $20 and they're matching you dollar for dollar on that $20 you're putting in, you're going to get 40 right into your account, right? So like, why wouldn't you do that? It's free money. You're guaranteeing yourself 100% return. So I think, when we're talking about, should I defer the full 10%? Can I afford that? Can I not afford that? What are my goals for saving for retirement? I mean, your primary goal when you join a 401k is to get 100% of that match that the company's putting out there. Whatever the formula is, you must put enough in to get that full company match. It's free money, and it could be 100% return on your deposit immediately, right? not to mention the tax deferred growth over time. So
Yeah.
I think if there's anything that I would suggest, it's got to take full advantage of that match. I mean, it's free money, right? It's free money. We got to get it in there. Um,
Yep.
there are a few other things that you have to think about with the company match. Sometimes companies will put a vesting schedule on that match, meaning that you have to stick around for a certain number of years to be able to walk away with that match when you retire or leave the company. So it's just something to be aware of is, you know, do those matching dollars carry any type of time commitment that I have to be aware of? Um, and then the last thing I would say, something that's really good to know about company matches is the company guaranteeing it, right? Because I know now with what I do when we set up plans, you can have something called a discretionary match where the company just says, at the end of the year, if we had a good year, I'll figure out whether I want to match everybody or not. Or you could have something that we would refer to as a stated match, meaning that the employer is going to match you if you put the money in. That's the good one. That's the one you want. So I think if you're with like a well-established company that's been around for several years, you're going to get that kind of guaranteed match versus the discretionary. But I think that's something to just be aware of for yourself is, what are the benefits of my retirement plan and what is my company committing to when it comes to matching?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are really good points and important points, and I think sometimes can be kind of overlooked by a lot of people.
Yep.
But it's definitely something to kind of be on the lookout for. All right, so we've got the money kind of going into the plan, right? We know we should be contributing. We know hopefully there's going to be a company match. Once the money goes in, this is a question we get a ton from clients. How do we invest it, right? What are our options? Typically, there's going to be some stock funds available, bond funds available, maybe a money market or a stable value fund, right? What are some of the things people should be on the lookout for when it comes to the different types of investment options that they have inside the
Yeah.
plan?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, the first thing is that every plan that gets set up now is going to have a default, right? There's going to be a default option so that Jim, if you say, I'm going to put 10% of my salary into this plan, but then you never pick what you want to invest in, the company plan has a default. That default option is typically something called a target date fund. So what the kind of system does is they look at your date of birth, they figure out what year you're going to turn 65, and they put you into the appropriate target date fund, right? So if I'm going to turn 65 in the year 2045, I go into the 2045 fund. And today that fund is probably being invested a little bit more aggressively because I have 20 plus years before I'm going to retire. But as that fund gets closer and closer to 2045, it automatically becomes more and more conservative as it gets closer to my retirement date. So one of the things I would say with investing is know what your default option is. It's very likely it's going to be one of those target date funds. And that's kind of like the, hey, do it for me. Like I'm just going to sit back. You guys, whoever the investment manager is going to take care of investing that fund. I'll just put all my money in there and call it a day, right? That's kind of a very popular option. And I would say I would argue probably close to 90% of every plan has a target date fund in it, or at least a suite of different target date funds. But like you said, there are other options in there. There's typically a menu of, 15 or 20 mutual funds, some conservative, some aggressive. Creating your own mix is something that you could do on a customized basis. And I think that that's something that's fine to do. But I think it's only fine to do if you're revisiting that allocation on a somewhat normal basis, right? Twice a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year. Like, you should be checking in and making sure that it's allocated in the proper way for yourself. And I know, as a participant, I mean, myself included, I had my financial licenses for, I don't know, 18 years. And I didn't want to manage my own account. Like I was scared. I didn't know what to pick, and I am like in the industry, right? I wasn't a fund picker, right? I was never a fund guy. I was always a fun guy, but not a fund guy, right? So I think what's helped me is that for my personal 401k, and the company that we use to manage it, we have something called a managed account service. So I pay like a very small, minuscule fee to have the investments kind of managed for me. So it rebalances for me every quarter, right? Based on my age, based on what I tell the system is going on outside of the 401k, right? I'm saving this much on a weekly basis, or I have an IRA, or, my wife has a Roth IRA at her employer, or whatever it is, right? Those are the things that the system all kind of takes into consideration and kind of automates those investments for me. So I think that there's choice, right? It's if you feel confident doing it yourself, there's an option. If you want to go into a target date fund, there's an option. And if you want it more like a managed, actively managed kind of portfolio, those options are typically available as well. So I think it all comes down to making sure that through whoever the financial advisor is helping with the 401k, that you have a good sense of what's out there and what's available, and then you kind of figure out where you fit, where your investment strategies fit the best with what's being offered.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are some really good points. Um, so we touched on obviously contributions, like we said, the company match, investment options. People know obviously that it is better to be saving into this thing throughout their career so that someday they can start withdrawing money and living on it in retirement, right? So, and this is a question we get a lot from existing clients and even prospective clients of, hey, I have this 401k. What are my options around taking the money out, right? Because people don't really, I don't think about that part of it until it's
Mhm.
time to actually take the money out, right?
Right.
What are some things people should be thinking about when it comes time to start taking money out? What are their options there?
Yeah. Yeah. So you have options, right? And I think the first thing to think about is like, when am I going to qualify to take money out, right? Because these plans are set up for retirement. So it's difficult to get money out of the plan unless you kind of hit one of these hurdles, right? And one of the first hurdle that most people hit, especially in today's job market where people are kind of jumping from company to company here and there, um, the first kind of hurdle that gets hit is, I stopped working for this company and I have a 401k balance. What can I do with it? Well, usually what we suggest, if you're under the age of 59 and a half, we suggest that you would roll it over, right? Roll it into an IRA. You can roll it into your new employer's plan typically. What you don't want to do is you don't want to withdraw that money as a taxable withdrawal, because if you withdraw that money, you have to pay ordinary income tax on it based on whatever tax bracket you're in. When the distribution leaves the account, they're going to withhold 20% of that distribution and send it to the IRS to prepay your taxes. And if you're under 59 and a half, you have to pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty. So we never recommend withdrawing money under the age of 59 and a half. Even if you leave the company, it's better to roll it over, keep everything tax deferred, owe nothing in taxes. It does get interesting though if you're still working, because most plans, once you reach the age of 59 and a half, they do allow you to withdraw money. So remember we talked about the investments, how there's maybe 15 or 20 investments in the plan. Let's say you're 59 and a half and you need to, I don't know, you want to buy an annuity, or you want to invest, in Google or something like that, right? What you can do over 59 and a half, most plans will allow you to do an in-service withdrawal, meaning that you're still working there, but you can take the money out. And again, we suggest the rollover to keep it tax deferred, but roll it over into an IRA. And once that money's in the IRA, they work with somebody like yourself, Jim, to go ahead and buy that annuity that you want. Go ahead and buy those shares of Google stock that you want, or whatever it might be, right? So here we're talking about investment flexibility when it comes to those 59 and a half withdrawals. And then the last thing I'll say is you retire, right? You retire, you're over the age of 59 and a half. You're welcome to leave the money in the plan. Most plans will happily allow you to continue to participate in their plan, in the form of investing the money. You're not going to be able to add anymore because you're retired. But you then have the ability again to withdraw the money. once you're retired. So again, rollovers are suggested, but you can take periodic withdrawals if you want. And then the last thing I'll say, when money must come out is when you reach required minimum distribution age, which, depending on how old you are right now and some of the laws that just got passed, it might be 71, 72, 73, depending on what year you were born. But you know, once you get to that age, the IRS then requires you to take money out, pay taxes on that money, which is the same within an IRA as well. So those are kind of all your distribution options. But I think the one to remember is that 59.5. If you wanted some more investment flexibility, that might be something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. So we've kind of touched on kind of the timeline, right, of getting started, contributing, picking the investments, and then eventually taking money out. For kind of the fifth and final topic, right? We'll just kind of dealer's choice here. What is one kind of nugget here that you would want to leave the listeners with around their 401ks? Anything specific?
Wow. That's
I
a good
know.
one. That's a good one. And you know, I think what it comes back to is, you know, you think about retirement, right? It's long term, right? It's going to take you a career, right, to retire, right? So I think that part of the way you need to approach these 401ks is you need to save right away, right? Because the power of tax deferred growth is unmatched in the world, right? I mean, tax deferred growth is just something that people don't realize how powerful that is, right? So I think getting money in as early as possible is such a good idea. And seriously, like, I know we all have, I mean, I have kids myself and I want to save for them to be in college and all that stuff. But think about it. Once your kids are out of college and they have their own jobs, are they funding your retirement? I doubt it, right? So
Most likely
save
not.
for yourself first, right? You should be taking care of yourself, then figuring out, how am I going to take care of things like college education, things like saving for that beach house that you always wanted, or that mountain house that you always wanted, or that European vacation, you know, that long vacation that you always wanted, right? Like, I think that you have to have priorities, and I think your priority needs to be, let me get in as much money as I can now so that when I go to retire, one, I can, and two, I have the money to retire and still live a very comfortable life in retirement. So that, I would just kind of almost go back to my very first point, Jim, and just say, stick as much as you can in there as early as you can and don't stop.
It's easy to build kind of those mental habits when you're young before some of the the kids and the larger purchases kind of come into the picture.
That's right.
We've kind of learned that one through kind of firsthand knowledge there. But hey, listen, Drew, really appreciate the time today. Appreciate you coming on here. I am pretty positive people listening and watching are able to learn a thing or two. So we really appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to hopefully doing this again soon.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Jim. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
All right. You too.